Alright guys, it's time for the Oathbound Paladin changes video for mod 15. Don't mind them, they're just training or something. I was having some fun earlier. Moving on. Okay, I relogged to try and get rid of them, and now they're all just standing there admiring this target dummy. Should I call the pest control service? I think that one on the left got tired. Okay guys, it's time for the real video now. Oathbound Paladin will receive a bunch of changes in mod 15, but unlike the cleric, almost all of them are good changes, which is great. Remember that this is just the first iteration of changes, and they may change, evolve, or go away entirely before the release date on November 6th. Their main objective with these changes was to make their animations and attack flow more fluid, as well as make their solo gameplay more engaging. The most notable thing they did here was increase all damage by about 14%. They felt that paladins were taking too long to kill things, and this combined with all the other changes does make a considerable boost. The other thing they changed was the animation times of powers, and a lot of them won't be interrupted by other powers anymore either. So the base damage combined with the faster cast times makes for a much better experience when trying to, hit stuff. They also reworked the Bulwark feat tree a bit, fixed some stuff in the Justice tree, and nerfed the Devotion Paragon's healing a little bit, but more on that later. All these powers that are on the screen right now will no longer be interrupted when you try to cast something else during its animation times. These ones have priority and will fully cast before your next power is activated. And they are Divine Call, which is your tab power, Sacred Weapon, Bane, Cleansing Touch, Banishment, Vow of Enmity, Absolution, Relentless Avenger, Circle of Power, Lay on Hands, and Shield of Faith. Now I'm going to go through all the powers that have had their animation times reduced and show you what they look like now. But first, I'm going to show you something drool-worthy. You can now cast Divine Call while shielding. The animation isn't as cool yet as just the base Divine Call, but it does work. If you play through Steam, though, you'll need to change your overlay keybind because Shift-Tab will open the keybind, or open the overlay instead of, that would get really annoying. Alright, so first off we have Sacred Weapon. Its animation time is slightly shorter, which is awesome. I just wish Burning Light was shorter, but it isn't. And then next, we got Templar's Wrath. Where'd it go? Okay, Templar's Wrath also casts slightly faster, although it doesn't really feel like it, honestly. It feels pretty much the same as before. Bane, however, it's hugely noticeable. You can get all 3 stacks up very fast now, and it's amazing. I love this change because Bane has a super long animation time right now, and it's a huge pain to get 3 stacks before being able to do anything else. And so now you can do that really fast. After Bane is Cleansing Touch. I've never used this power before. What are you supposed to do with it? Oh, you're supposed to heal them. Okay. Alright, so I guess that's shorter than before, but I've never used it, so maybe it isn't. I don't know. You tell me. Whoops. Now we got the Vow of Enmity that tanks use to get aggro. That also is slightly shorter than before, although it's not quite as noticeable. I still love Bane. Let's do that again. There we go. And then we got Absolution. Its animation time was massively reduced. They actually specified massively compared to the others are slightly. I can agree with that. That is a massive cooldown reduction. Or not cooldown reduction, animation time reduction. Because it used to take forever. Although I only ever really used it when I was running Cradle with a Guardian Fighter DPS. But, anyways. Relentless Avenger. Let's see what this one looks like. I've never used this one either. Okay, I guess that's shorter than before too. Radiant Strike, also shorter than before. It's a lot more clean, fluid now. It doesn't make you stutter all over the ground. Well, I guess slightly it does, but not nearly as bad as before. Then we got Valorous Strike, which I've also never used before, apart from when I first started, obviously. Valorous Strike. Looks like you're getting all up in their face. It does look to be faster than before, though, from what I remember. And then, Divine Judgment. It's also faster than before. Doesn't really feel like it, but I think maybe very slightly. Like there's less of a pause between when your arm goes up in the air and when the blade comes down. And then lastly, heroism, and I don't have any action points, hold on. Okay, heroism. This is the last one that's supposedly shorter than before. Oh, look how large I am. Okay, this is a little bit glitchy. There we go. Alright, I don't remember what the cast time was before, but there you go! Next up, a couple powers had their functionality adjusted too, and so let's talk about that. First off, most importantly in my opinion, Shielding Strike's third hit now grants a shield equal to 3% of your max HP instead of an absorption buff that absorbed 1% of your HP on each attack. And this stacks up to 3 times, same as before. Here is a combat preview to show you what that looks like. As you can see, you still take 0 damage, and the shield constantly regenerates itself as you keep attacking. And so, it's still pretty much the same as before, just a visible indicator of what damage is being absorbed. Next up, Sacred Weapon. The issue where it wouldn't expire after 3 attacks for Devotion Paladins was fixed. Its healing was increased by 5%, which brings it to 20%, and the bonus healing duration was increased to 10 seconds, which is 2 seconds higher than before. There's also a note that says its damage was lowered by 17%, and there's a lot of confusion about what that means, especially considering the base 14% damage increase that most things received. I would guess its base bonus damage was reduced, but I could be wrong, so until an official statement is made, you may as well just take that statement that I just made with a grain of salt. Okay, Aura of Solitude was fixed as well, and I actually like this now. I mean, if I was still doing stuff, of course. It no longer considers companions as allies, so it works properly even with your companion right next to you. And the Feat Dominating Presence, which increases the range of all your auras, doesn't increase the range of that either. And, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Aura of Solitude increases your damage and healing when there's no allies around you, so basically only when you're soloing stuff. Now, on to the feat changes that I mentioned earlier. Bulwark had a couple nice changes to Head Unbowed and Holy Barrier Capstone. Head Unbowed causes you to generate up to 10% of your Divine Energy bar each second, and this is actually really nice. Let's show you what that looks like. So we're in combat, I'm just going to use this 3 times, not like I would actually do that. And then it just generates way faster than before. So, it would be a good thing. Well, I wish this feat was in the Justice Tree, honestly, because combining that with all the other awesome feats in the Justice Tree would be really nice. Moving on. Holy Barrier. This is changed quite a bit from what I remember. When you're in combat, you gain stacks of barrier every second and by using your powers. Activating Divine Call consumes all these stacks to grant you a shield for 10% of your max hit points plus 0.5% per stack of barrier for 15 seconds. While the shield is up, you're granted 20% movement speed, 20% critical strike chance, 20% deflection chance, 20% more incoming healing, and 20% more recharge speed. And then barrier stacks up to 100 times. Using Shielding Strike with this allows for quite a lot of blue hit points. And while these changes are nice, Justice still feels like the better tree. A few more changes were made to the Justice tree. Let's go back to my actual Justice. There we go. The Devotion feat. Oh, sorry. First one's the Devotion. I don't use this loadout. I know it's bad. Okay. The Devotion feat, Shining Beacon, was changed. It had its duration reduced to 10 seconds instead of 15, and it now actually says that your recharge speed is increased by up to 15%, but the functionality is still the same. It still did that before. It also no longer has a 60-second cooldown, and it now triggers whenever you take damage while below 50% hit points. And back to the real loadout. There we go. Now Stem the Tide was also changed. It no longer considers companions as allies, which is another fix and should cause this feat to work better. However, the slow was reduced to a max of 20% instead of 25%. But the damage taken bonus was doubled to 10% instead of 5%, which is great. Also, this feat no longer puts the player into the combat stance. Now, as you can tell just by looking at it, well, no allies are near you, so clearly it's for soloing. So they changed a bunch of stuff to make solo play better. That was their goal, and by those few changes and the bonus damage, I think that they have done that. Lastly, Radiant Champion's bonus movement speed. If I could find Radiant Champion, where'd it go? Ah, here it is. Radiant Champion's bonus movement speed was reduced to a maximum of 20% instead of 25%, but the cooldown reduction bonus was doubled. So this is great. I really like this feat. So everyone's gonna get 10% more cooldown reduction from me instead of 5%. So we should just be able to spam things forever, right? I wish. Finally, last but not least, I have to go back to my devotion. I'm sorry. Their base Oath of Devotion mechanic bonus healing was reduced by 25%. It also increases ally stats by 5% for 10 seconds, which is 2 seconds longer than before, and it now it does not require you to actually restore hit points on the target to take effect. So even if everybody's at full health and you try to heal them, by my understanding, this should still give them bonus stats. Unlike before, where you had to actually heal them for that to work. Well, guys, that was all the Paladin changes so far. That went by a lot faster than I expected. I thought this video was going to be longer. If you have any questions, leave a comment and I'll do my best to answer them. I don't like this power. I want to use this. No, not that one. Wait, this is the wrong loadout. I am really bad. Alright. Let me know what you think of these changes and have fun testing them on the preview server. Bye!